All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television show in the history of the entire universe. I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Ice Hunt by James Rollins. This is one of his early thriller novels that he wrote back in 2003, pre-Sigma Force. Now I've got the entire James Rollins book collection up here. We'll pan through my library of 5,000 books, and we'll go up here and show you that's where I keep all of my James Rollins books collection. Anyway, so I've been reading and reviewing these books slowly over time for the channel. And here we are at Ice Hunt. Let's talk about the cover first. You know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I think this one's pretty dope. I like the design of it. It looks like a thriller novel. It's got a nice wraparound thing going on here. It's a standalone novel. It's not part of his Sigma Force series. It's not tied to any of the other series. There's a cool character list here in the front. So there's a bunch of characters, and we show who they belong to. Like we got the submarine guys, the civilians, the Russians, the Americans, and then we've also got a great map of this underwater base, and we'll describe what this is, but I really liked the map, and I really liked that he included this so we could see what's going on here. So what happens is, in 1937, that's the prologue, and it takes place in 1937, a native village in northern Canada just vanishes. Whoosh, it's gone. And then we jump to the present day, or 2003 when this was written, and we're inside of a submarine underneath the Arctic Ocean, underneath the ice cap. And now this is cool because James Rollins does a really great job of describing what it would be like to be in a submarine underneath the ice cap. So if you know, the ice cap is ice on top of the ocean, floating there. But what's underneath all that? I mean, how deep is this ice? You know, there's the old cliche, the tip of the iceberg, you know. Let's say that this shelf is the ocean, the sea level, and we've got an iceberg, and it's sitting up here, and this is the tip of it, just this little wall. And then I should have used something else. Let's use this guy. This is the tip of the iceberg, but the iceberg is huge underneath. It like goes way, way down. So on this ice sheet above the Arctic Ocean, the ice sheet is it's like just a giant iceberg where very minimal ice is floating above the surface, and there's just huge chunks of ice that drop down into the ocean like stalagmites or stalactites, whichever stalag in a cave is the one that is a pointy downward. Stalactite or stalagmite, I don't know. But that's what's underneath there. It's almost like taking New York City and tipping it over and having all the skyscrapers just point down. And as you're a submarine and you're navigating your way through all this shit, it can be dangerous. James Rollins did a hell of a lot better job of just describing it in words than I did with visuals. But I think you get the point. So what happens is, as they get to this one big they come across a particular, like most of the stalagmites or stalactites that hang down are kind of like the same size-ish, but once in a while they run into a really big one, and now they've run into a massive one. Like it's miles and miles and miles wide, and they don't know how far it goes down. They think it goes down like 5 miles or something like that. But they decide to circle it and explore it. They're like, because a chunk of ice that big probably goes back into history, and if you drilled into the center of it, you don't know what you might find. You might find like dinosaur fossils. You might find, who knows what's in there. It's so ancient. And so they're like, this is one of the biggest scientific discoveries. This a chunk of ice this big dropping into the ocean that far down is a big discovery. And so they're circling it, and what they find is far more interesting. They find an actual Russian submarine lodged into the ice. And so they're like, oh my God, this Russian submarine got lost down here, and the ice just, and it just, either it crashed into it and then the ice formed over it, or maybe everybody died inside the submarine and the submarine just floating around and the ice overtook it. Anyway, there's a Russian submarine, but then they do some sonar research of that little chunk of ice where the submarine is stuck, and they find that there's somebody has carved out of this ice an entire underwater base, some sort of secret underwater base, and that's what we've got here. So a really, really cool setup. Okay, so that's the setup. That takes about 20 or 30 pages, and then we jump to an Alaskan fish and game warden named Matt Pike, who's up in the Brooks Range. Whenever things take place in Alaska, I'm on board because I grew up in Alaska. I know a lot about it. In fact, I've been to the Brooks Range. I know what this landscape looks like. It's very bleak, very remote. And he's a game warden up there, and there's a plane crash. He goes to the wreckage. He finds a dude alive. Then some Russian, a plane flies over. Some Russian bad guys jump out of the plane, and they're strapped to motorcycles, and they parachute down, and now they're chasing them. It becomes a big chase scene across Alaska. So we've got those two kind of storylines going on at the same time, and I know they're going to converge at some point. So what happens is the people from the submarine that discover the other submarine and the base lodged in the ice, they decide to explore and enter this underwater ice sea base. And this is where I kind of got a little disappointed in the book. The book is dope as hell, but I thought most of the book was going to be just this group of adventurers going through this sea base room at a time and discovering just cool stuff, and we as the reader would get to go along with them. However, they discover everything on this base off screen. We don't get to see it. They just talk about the discoveries later. And I was kind of like disappointed. I was like, I really wanted to explore that base one room at a time and then see what was going on. But the author kind of made the decision of, they went through, they found a bunch of dead people. It looked like the dead people have either died of natural causes, but some of the dead people look like they were attacked by some sort of, like there might have been a fight down here, but there's no evidence of a gunfight. It's just, but some of these bodies are shredded like a monster took over. Like maybe this is a little bit of a spoiler, but they find out that the underwater sea base is called the Grendel Sea Base. Grendel having been named after the old Russian legend of the Grendel monster. It might be a Nordic legend, I don't know. But anyway, that's what the sea base. And then what happens is, from here on out, we get the Alaskan game warden, the people in the Russian underwater ice sea base, where they found all the dead people. It turns into kind of like a Jurassic Park-esque horror monster chase tale through about the last half of it, or 2/3 of it. It's pretty cool. It's really good. I'll just read the back to end this with. Carved into a moving island of ice twice the size of the United States. Holy shit, that was bigger than I described it. Ice Station Grendel has been abandoned for more than 20 years. 70 years. 70 years. It's World War II era. The twisted brainchild of the finest minds of the former Soviet Union, it was designed to be inaccessible and virtually invisible. But an American undersea research vessel has inadvertently pulled too close, and something has been sighted moving inside the allegedly deserted facility, something whose survival defies every natural law. And now, as scientists, soldiers, intelligence operatives, and unsuspecting civilians are drawn into Grendel's lethal vortex, the most extreme measures possible will be undertaken to protect its dark mysteries. Because the terrible truths locked behind submerged walls of ice and steel could end human life on Earth. Yes, this is a roller coaster, and first class one at that. Some astonishing daring and do and adventure and underwater cave, ice cave exploration monster being chased by monsters type book. I did not like this as much as the Sigma Force stuff, but I did love the concept. Now, I also read his other standalone novel, Subterranean. Now, I'll be getting to all of the other ones like Amazonia, Altar of Eden. There's a few others that are standalones, but we'll get to those. So far, I think this might be my least favorite James Rollins book to date. That being said, it's still like an 8.5 out of 10. Because the other James Rollins books were 9s, 9.5s, 10s. But this is still a pretty cool adventure, and a unique idea.